15 powerful ways to handle people who don't respect you, a modern Stoic approach. Introduction. Why respecting yourself first matters. Let's get real for a moment. Have you ever noticed how some people just love testing your boundaries? They interrupt, make passive-aggressive comments, or act like your time and feelings are optional. And we're somehow expected to smile and let it slide. Not today. If you're done putting up with people who don't respect you, this is for you. Today, I'm breaking down 15 brutally honest, maybe even slightly controversial, ways to handle disrespect without losing your cool and without sacrificing your self-respect. By the end of this, you'll have every tool you need to show people exactly where the line is drawn. Let's dive in. 1. Embrace the silent stare. Let's start with one of my all-time favorite, slightly savage techniques, the silent stare. You might be thinking, really? Just staring? Trust me on this. When someone is being openly rude or disrespectful, nothing throws them off more than a long, calm, completely unbothered stare. Here's why it works. People who disrespect others are usually looking for a reaction. They want you to stammer, get flustered, or snap back. They thrive on dragging you into their drama, to make you question yourself or feel small. But when you just look at them, no words, no expressions, the power dynamic flips. I remember using this technique during a group meeting where one guy kept talking over me, cutting me off like he was on a mission. I tried interjecting politely, but he wouldn't stop. Finally, I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and held his gaze. No blinking, no expression for 5 solid seconds. The tension built, and everyone else at the table started looking at him too. He got uncomfortable, stumbled over his words, and never interrupted me again. The silent stare says everything without uttering a word. I'm not playing this game with you. It's a way of reclaiming control without lifting a finger. 2. Silence speaks louder than words. Here's a secret weapon that's incredibly underrated: silence. When someone disrespects you, one of the most powerful responses is no response at all. Now, I know what you're thinking. Silence feels passive, almost like letting them get away with it. But here's the truth. Silence is far from passive. It's a choice, and sometimes it's the boldest, loudest answer you can give. When someone throws negativity at you, they're trying to pull you into their drama, to make you feel small or defensive. But when you don't engage, when you just let their words hang in the air without responding, you force them to sit alone with their own behavior. And that silence? It's deafening. I once dealt with someone who loved masking insults as jokes. One day, he made a particularly unnecessary comment about my work. Instead of firing back or explaining myself, I simply raised an eyebrow and said nothing. The awkwardness was palpable. He mumbled something under his breath and moved on, and never tried that tactic with me again. Silence is like a filter. It keeps your peace intact by blocking out the negativity others try to project onto you. The next time someone disrespects you, pause, take a deep breath, and let your silence speak for itself. You'll be surprised by how uncomfortable it makes them and how freeing it feels for you. 3. Stop explaining your choices. How many times have you made a decision only for someone to immediately start asking, "Why did you do that? Why didn't you go to that event? Why did you take that job?" People seem to think they're entitled to an explanation for everything we do. Here's the honest truth. They're not. Your choices are your own, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you live your life. If someone's questioning your choices, they're often not looking to understand. They're looking to judge. They're poking holes to make you doubt yourself or to feel better about their own decisions by making you second-guess yours. I remember switching careers, a risky move that left many scratching their heads. At first, I tried explaining my reasons, hoping to win their approval. But no matter how much I justified my decision, they kept probing. Then one day, I decided to stop. When asked why I left my stable job, I simply replied, "Because I wanted to." The silence that followed was golden. Over time, the questions stopped altogether. By refusing to explain yourself, you're taking ownership of your life. You're saying, "My choices are valid because I made them." Confidence doesn't seek permission, and neither should you. 4. Keep your distance. Sometimes, the best way to handle people who don't respect you is to keep your distance. I know it sounds harsh, maybe even a little cold, but here's the hard truth. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. If someone is consistently disrespecting you, one of the healthiest moves you can make is to give yourself some space from them. This isn't about being mean or ignoring people. It's about choosing where and how you spend your time and energy. Imagine your life as a limited access club. Not everyone gets a VIP pass. If someone's constantly crossing your boundaries, making you feel small, or radiating negativity, why would you keep them close? I once had a friend who loved making snide comments about everything, from my career to my taste in music. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe I'm overreacting. But those little jabs added up until I realized I was walking on eggshells around them. So, I started limiting our interactions. Instead of seeing them weekly, I scaled it back to monthly. The result? I felt lighter, freer, and more in tune with my own worth. Creating distance isn't selfish, it's necessary. You're sending a clear message. My peace matters more than your presence. 5. Hold your head high. When someone is disrespectful, they're banking on making you feel small. They want you to doubt yourself, lower your eyes, and shrink into yourself. But when you stand tall and hold your head high, you're saying without a word, I know exactly who I am, and nothing you say or do will make me feel less. Confidence makes people uncomfortable, especially those who rely on tearing others down. When you refuse to let their disrespect touch you, you're showing them they don't have the power to bring you down. I once dealt with someone who loved throwing subtle insults my way. For a while, I dreaded seeing them, always bracing for the next dig. But one day, I decided to stop feeling small. I showed up, shoulders back, head high, and every time they made a comment, I simply smiled and carried on like nothing had happened. Eventually, they backed off. Holding your head high isn't just about physical posture. It's about mental posture too. Walk into every room like you belong there. Don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. 6. Reframe their behavior as a reflection of them, not you. One of the most empowering shifts you can make when dealing with disrespectful people is to stop taking their behavior personally. Let's be real. When someone disrespects you, it's easy to internalize it and wonder, what did I do wrong? But here's the truth. Their disrespect is often more about them than it is about you. People who are rude, dismissive, or outright cruel are usually projecting their own insecurities, frustrations, or unresolved issues onto others. Think about it. When someone feels powerless in one area of their life, they might try to assert control over others to compensate. When you realize this, their behavior loses its sting because you understand it's not actually about you. It's about them. I once dealt with a co-worker who constantly criticized my work in front of others. At first, I thought I must have been doing something wrong. But then I noticed that she only seemed to criticize me when she was stressed about her own deadlines or feeling insecure about her performance. Once I reframed her behavior as a reflection of her struggles rather than my competence, it became easier to brush it off. I stopped seeing her comments as personal attacks and started viewing them as her way of coping, albeit poorly, with her own stress. Reframing their behavior doesn't mean excusing it. It means understanding it so you can detach emotionally. When you stop taking things personally, you reclaim your power. You're saying, your negativity says more about you than it does about me. 7. Use humor to deflect negativity. Sometimes, the best way to disarm someone who's being disrespectful is to use humor. A well-timed joke or light-hearted comment can take the wind out of their sails and shift the energy of the interaction entirely. Humor has a way of diffusing tension and making it clear that you're not going to let their negativity bring you down. Let's say someone makes a snarky comment about your appearance or choices. Instead of getting defensive, you could respond with something like, wow, if I had $1 for every time someone said that, I'd be retired by now, or you're hilarious, I'll give you that. The key is to keep it light and playful without being sarcastic or mean-spirited. This approach shows that you're confident enough not to take their words seriously while also refusing to engage in their negativity. I remember using humor to handle a particularly critical family member who always had something negative to say about my career choices. One day, after yet another unsolicited critique, I simply smiled and said, well, at least we can agree I'm full of surprises. The room erupted in laughter, and even they couldn't help but chuckle. From that point on, their criticisms became less frequent because they realized they weren't getting the reaction they wanted. Humor isn't just a defense mechanism. It's a way of showing the world that you're unbothered by negativity. It's like saying, you can throw shade all you want, but I'm still shining. 8. Set clear boundaries without apology. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that people will treat you exactly how you allow them to treat you. Setting clear boundaries is non-negotiable when it comes to handling disrespect. And guess what? You don't need to apologize for standing up for yourself. Boundaries aren't about controlling other people. They're about protecting yourself. Whether it's telling someone, I don't appreciate being spoken to like that, or letting a friend know that their jokes cross a line, setting boundaries communicates your expectations clearly. The key is to deliver your message calmly and firmly, without wavering. For example, I once had a colleague who would frequently interrupt me during meetings. After several attempts to politely interject failed, I finally said, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me finish before jumping in. There was a brief pause, but I held my ground. To my surprise, they apologized and never interrupted me again. By setting that boundary, I showed them and myself that my voice mattered. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to prioritizing others' feelings over your own. But here's the thing. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual respect, and part of earning that respect is knowing where to draw the line. When you set boundaries without apology, you're saying, this is what I deserve, and I won't settle for anything less. 9. Practice radical self-acceptance. When you fully accept yourself, flaws and all, you become untouchable. People who disrespect you are often looking for cracks in your armor, hoping to exploit your insecurities. But when you practice radical self-acceptance, you eliminate those cracks altogether. Radical self-acceptance means embracing every part of yourself, the good, the bad, and the messy. It means recognizing that you are inherently worthy, regardless of what anyone else thinks or says. When you embody this mindset, external validation becomes irrelevant because you already know your worth. I used to struggle with imposter syndrome, constantly seeking approval from others to validate my abilities. But over time, I realized that no amount of external praise could fill the void left by my own lack of self-acceptance. So, I started focusing on affirming myself instead. Every morning, I'd look in the mirror and remind myself of my strengths, my accomplishments, and my unique qualities. Slowly but surely, I began to see myself through a lens of unconditional love and acceptance. When you practice radical self-acceptance, you radiate confidence. Disrespectful people may still try to bring you down, but their words will bounce right off you because you've built an unshakable foundation of self-worth. You're essentially saying, I see you, but your opinion doesn't define me. 10. Surround yourself with uplifting people. Here's a simple truth. The company you keep shapes the person you become. If you're constantly surrounded by people who drain your energy, question your worth, or undermine your confidence, it's only a matter of time before their negativity starts to rub off on you. On the flip side, surrounding yourself with uplifting, supportive people can transform your life in ways you never imagined. Uplifting people celebrate your wins, encourage you during tough times, and genuinely want to see you succeed. They remind you of your worth when you forget it, and inspire you to be the best version of yourself. These are the kinds of relationships that nourish your soul and fuel your growth. I once made a conscious decision to distance myself from a group of friends who were constantly gossiping, criticizing, or competing with each other. At first, it felt lonely, but soon I found myself gravitating toward new friendships with people who share my values and supported my goals. The difference was night and day. Instead of feeling drained after social interactions, I felt energized and inspired. My confidence soared, and I began pursuing opportunities I'd previously been too afraid to try. Surrounding yourself with uplifting people isn't just about avoiding negativity. It's about creating a positive environment where you can thrive. It's about choosing relationships that reflect the kind of person you want to be. As the saying goes, show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. 11. redirect the conversation with grace. Sometimes, disrespectful behavior comes in the form of intrusive questions or comments that are meant to make you uncomfortable. Instead of engaging directly or getting defensive, one powerful way to handle it is by redirecting the conversation. This technique allows you to take control of the interaction without escalating tension. For example, if someone makes a snarky comment about your career choice, instead of reacting emotionally, you can calmly respond with something like, "That's an interesting perspective. What made you think about that?" By flipping the focus back onto them, you subtly shift the dynamic. They're now put in the position of explaining themselves, which often diffuses their negativity. I once dealt with a relative who loved critiquing my lifestyle decisions during family gatherings. One holiday dinner, they commented on how unrealistic my freelance work was compared to a traditional 9-to-5 job. Instead of defending myself, I smiled and said, "Oh, that's funny. Do you ever feel like your job gives you enough freedom to explore other interests?" The tables turned so quickly that they were left stumbling over their words, and the topic changed altogether. Redirecting the conversation isn't about being manipulative. It's about maintaining your composure while gently steering things toward a more constructive direction. It shows that you won't be rattled by their attempts to provoke you, and it keeps the energy light and positive. 12. Practice active listening, then decide what deserves your energy. Here's a counterintuitive approach. Sometimes, the best way to handle disrespect is to listen actively, but selectively. When someone is being rude or dismissive, it's tempting to either shut down completely or jump into defense mode. However, taking a moment to truly listen can give you valuable insight into whether their words deserve your attention at all. Active listening means paying attention not just to what they're saying, but also to why they're saying it. Are they projecting their own insecurities? Are they trying to assert dominance? Or are they genuinely seeking connection but going about it poorly? Once you understand their intent, you can decide whether to engage or let it go. For instance, I once had a coworker who constantly criticized my ideas during brainstorming sessions. At first, I assumed they were just being difficult, but after listening closely, I realized they were insecure about their own contributions and felt overshadowed. Instead of reacting defensively, I started acknowledging their input more often, which helped ease their need to belittle mine. Over time, our working relationship improved significantly. Practicing active listening doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means choosing your battles wisely. Sometimes, understanding where someone is coming from allows you to address the root cause of their behavior, rather than getting caught up in surface-level conflicts. 13. Use I statements to communicate assertively. When dealing with disrespectful people, communication is key, but not just any kind of communication. Using I statements is a powerful way to express your feelings and set boundaries without sounding accusatory or confrontational. An I statement focuses on how you feel rather than blaming the other person. For example, instead of saying, "You always interrupt me," try saying, "I feel unheard when I'm interrupted." This subtle shift takes the emphasis off their behavior and places it squarely on your experience, making it harder for them to argue or become defensive. I remember using this technique with a friend who had a habit of dominating conversations. After several attempts to politely interject failed, I finally said, "I feel frustrated when I don't get a chance to share my thoughts. Can we take turns speaking?" To my surprise, they immediately apologized and adjusted their behavior. By framing my feelings as my own responsibility, I avoided creating unnecessary conflict while still standing up for myself. I statements are especially effective because they encourage empathy. They invite the other person to see things from your perspective without feeling attacked. And even if they don't change their behavior right away, you'll walk away knowing you communicated assertively and respectfully. 14. Know when to walk away entirely. There comes a point in every relationship, whether personal or professional, where you have to ask yourself, is this worth it? Some people simply refuse to respect you no matter how many boundaries you set, how much silence you embrace, or how confidently you carry yourself. In those cases, the healthiest option might be to walk away entirely. Walking away doesn't mean you've lost or given up. It means you've recognized that some relationships aren't salvageable. Holding on to toxic connections out of guilt, obligation, or fear only drains your energy and diminishes your self-worth. Sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is say, "This isn't working for me anymore." I once had a friendship that became increasingly one-sided. No matter how much effort I put into supporting them, they consistently dismissed my needs and opinions. Eventually, I realized that staying in the relationship was doing more harm than good. Walking away wasn't easy. It came with guilt and doubt, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. It opened up space for healthier, more fulfilling friendships to enter my life. Knowing when to walk away requires clarity and courage. Ask yourself, does this person bring positivity into my life? Do they respect my boundaries and value me as a person? If the answer is no, it's okay to let go. You deserve relationships that uplift and inspire you, not ones that weigh you down. 15. Cultivate a strong support system. Finally, one of the most underrated ways to handle disrespectful people is to cultivate a strong support system. Surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care about you, celebrate your wins, and validate your worth creates a buffer against negativity. When you know you have allies in your corner, it becomes easier to brush off disrespect from others. A strong support system acts as both a mirror and a shield. It reflects your strengths and reminds you of your value when others try to tear you down. It also protects you from internalizing negativity by providing a safe space to vent, recharge, and gain perspective. For years, I struggled with self-doubt because I didn't have a solid group of supportive friends. Whenever someone disrespected me, I wondered if they were right. But everything changed when I started investing in meaningful relationships with people who saw and appreciated the real me. Their encouragement gave me the confidence to stand up for myself and distance myself from toxic influences. Building a support system takes time and intentionality. Seek out people who align with your values, who challenge you to grow, and who show up for you when it matters most. These are the relationships that will sustain you through life's ups and downs and remind you that you're never alone. Conclusion: respect starts with you. At the end of the day, how others treat you reflects less about them and more about how you allow yourself to be treated. Life is too short to bend over backward for people who can't see your value. Set the standard for how you want to be treated and watch as the right people gravitate toward you. So stand tall. Embrace silence when it serves you. Walk away from what doesn't serve you. And most importantly, remember this: respect starts with you. The more you honor yourself, the less room there is for anyone else's disrespect to stick. What's your story? How have you handled disrespect or set boundaries? Share in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and remember, you're worth every bit of the confidence you carry.